Okay. And we are scrolling. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Uh, First, I wanted to give everybody a little bit of history about myself, and then what I want this to be, it's an interactive discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'll show several slides about either specifics in my display and set up things that I've done in my display to give you tips and tricks for how I do things. As with Xlights and Lightroom and any other software, everybody can do their own thing. So I'm going to show you how I do things and what I like to do. I think those things will benefit some people they may not. I've been using S5 since it was in beta and have had very good luck with it. So this will be let's see, I've used it the last 3 years of my display. So it's been working great for me. So just wanted everybody to be aware of that. We'll cover that. I will go into some things you want to do about your layout, and then I'm going to go into how you do certain things relevant to sequencing. So let me fly on because we basically have 2 hours and I want to get into more of an interactive where I can show you things in sequencer itself and let you see that. So yes, I'm crazy about Christmas. I started decorating our house all the way back in 1997. It was a static display until basically 2007. And that's when I went to an animated display. And I started out with 8 Lightorama controllers and went from there. But actually, I had 12 controllers in that first year. And this is my display in 2007 when it was animated. So there were 12 controllers that year. The next year, I jumped to 24. So in 2014, I was on the Great Christmas Light Fight. That was a big game changer for us as a family. We were not only a competitor, but we actually won the show that we were in. So that kind of created a lot of, as we say, notoriety. Not that I was seeking it, but it's a long story. But anyway, since then, it was a very rewarding experience, by the way. And if you come to the panel that's going to be at 8 o'clock, I think you'll really learn a lot if you should ever consider that you may want to be on there. I found it very rewarding. Some members of my family found it less rewarding. But the one thing I didn't like from it was the notoriety because the traffic that year was the most horrendous traffic I can even explain. Since then, I've been basically maintaining my display and also work on 4 other displays commercially with Xlights and Lightorama. A little bit about my display. So if we're talking about last year's stats, basically I had 5 computer networks if you go by outputs on the computer. So I run my show from a computer. I don't have anything else that runs it. I used to have little show directors that would run it when I was starting in the early years. But basically, as time progresses, I get more and more into a single E1.31 network, basically. But until everything goes that way, which I don't know if I'll ever totally get that way because there's still some things I want to use AC controllers for. But in a nutshell, I have a DMX universe that comes out of a USB dongle that runs a lot of RGB items. Then I have 3 Lightorama networks, which are running my snowmen, the servos for my snowmen, and basically 2 sets of, well, no, all the AC controllers, and then I do have a few pixels from Lightorama that are in a couple other things that I use. And then everything else is on an E1.31 network. So I have a total of 38 controllers in my yard. 12 of those are AC controllers. There are 9 DMX controllers, 14 pixel controllers, and 3 servo controllers. Everything is run with Lightorama. I had 15,602 pixels last year and 8,057 RGB nodes, which look like pixels, but are RGB items. And they're on the majority of things in my display. So there are a few things that are still LED lit, but the numbers keep going down and down and down for those. Why do I do it? I have 3 robotic snowmen. I have 3 grandchildren, soon to be 4. So that's a big reason for why we do it. And so you get to see those little ones. Here's a good picture. And Audrey, I don't know if you're still on or if anybody can mute. So if anybody has any questions, you can unmute the lines. And people, because I'm not looking at the chat. So if you need me, pop in with a voice. So what do I want noticed about my display? I try to have a Christ-focused display. I do have elements of Santa Claus and other things, but I want this displayed more than anything else because to me, it is the reason for Christmas. So that's where I put a lot of my focus. So I suggest that everybody have an idea over what they want to emphasize in their display, because if it makes meaning to you, then it can make meaning to your audience, and you can get that conveyed out there, whether it's something fun or whether it's a serious message about Christmas or whatever it happens to be. So what do I want to do? I want to draw attention to the nativity. I'm going to keep my audience interested, and I try to do that with generating color and motion across that color. I try to create effects that time to the music, which I think we all kind of want to do. And then the big thing in sequencing, I want to be able to see what it looks like on my computer that it will look like in the yard. So, and you'll see how I kind of achieve that and how I do my layout. So this is kind of a sample of my audience. And then I have tons of cars that park in the center turn lane. A lot of them walk down to there, and I have a retention pond that people park at, but I get a pretty decent crowd. And I don't know if anybody can see this little video. If it gets too bumpy, let me know. But I have granddaughters that love to just watch the lights. So here's some suggestions for you before we get into some of the tips. Frame your display around the edges where possible. So, and by edges, I mean the back of your yard, the front of your yard, and the side to side. So put elements where you can create that frame. And if you want good motion, you'll want a lot of pixel elements all the way in the back of your display and the front of your display and on the side to side. Try to figure out how you can fill in the middle. Last year, I added filler by just putting a few of those piece stakes or pixel stakes, however you want to call them, into the yard in certain places where they kind of added ground depth. In Florida, it rains so much here. I don't like putting light strings just down on the ground, because as it is, I have to put a lot of things up on bricks to keep them off of ground level because of the amount of rain I get. So layer it from front to back, layer it from side to side. And so if you can, do a visual layout of your display and think of where things are going to be. So here's where I've actually gone into Visio, and I draw out my yard. So on the left-hand side is my house facing to the right. And at the right is the sidewalk and the street. And then this is a little dated, but this is where I put things so that I can kind of get a layout, and then I can figure out how I want to position things controller-wise as well. And it would work the same if you just drew it out on a piece of paper. Think about layering your yard in layers so that you have things in the front, in the middle, and in the back. And in the middle, if you can layer it in pieces there, you'll be able to create effects across those layers. And then you can also create a fuller view by looking through the layers, and then a thinner view. And in so doing, think about what you put in the middle. So I like to put wireframes in the middle of my display and towards the front, because you can see through wireframes. So if there's something further back behind them, they won't block that. I have a yard that's pretty deep. It's about 80 feet deep from where I start my lights to where they run back to the house. So I use wireframes where I can do that. But where I'm up against the house, I'll use the Boscorio Studio props or similar props that are flat up against the house. So I can use those, take advantage of those, and they're in the back of the display, and they're not blocking anything. So here's kind of a shot where you're looking through my display, and you can see there's a boatload of pixels across there, and you're looking through across all those. So if you want to get a lot of light, you can turn everything on and create that. But then also you can turn on pieces of it and let them see different parts of your display and create effects relevant to that. So first thing we're going to talk about is getting into your preview from a tip standpoint. So there's two aspects of using a preview. You can either start from scratch, or then you have your year-to-year changes. So when you're starting from scratch, think about your pixel controllers and the signed DMX universes. So you're going to have to think about, if I have a pixel controller, for example, controlling a mega tree, I probably will have more than one of those. Where's that going to be, and what DMX universes do I want to use for those? You can use Excel or similar spreadsheets to do that. And then you can assign your props to those. And it helps you if you do that up front before you get into creating a preview, because you can go back and forth and do that, start creating props, then go back in and reassign them, or you can do it as you go. So I'm going to pop out real quick and show you what I do. So here is a controller view where you can see all my controllers, and you know, a standard LOR 1602 controller has 16 outputs. And here's the items I have that are plugged into that one controller. And then I have the second one, and I'm labeling by the LOR unit ID, and then what's the outputs for those. When you get down out of your AC controllers, then you can get into your, I have some old Holiday Coro dumb controllers, basically, that are RGB controllers. So controlling dumb RGBs. And so I have 9 outputs and some of those in 8, and they're controlling all the poles and arches around my yard because they're just RGB nodes. They're not pixels, because at the time I didn't want that much motion and that many universes I had to manage. And RGBs were a little bit cheaper than pixels at the time. So I have a boatload of those. And then you get out of that RGB universe into my intake universe. So I have all of these, which are highlighted here. Those are my pixel tree. And there's 4 different controllers I have running that pixel tree. Because I only use, I'm pretty crazy in how, I try to keep my universes simple. So output equals universe to me. I don't try to go much beyond that. So I have some things that have like 153 nodes on them on my house ridge. But by using a controller that only has so many outputs, I then use that, and I also get my light counts by doing this. So as you can see, I have different Falcon controllers. And then I have some other AlphaPix controllers here that are older that control different parts, which gets me all of my nodes. And then I have a solitary DMX. This is where I keep track of the DMX universes I've assigned. So my pixel tree is starting at 101 and goes all the way down here to 187. And then I have other universes that start at 23. And the reason these jump from 1 to 23 is because I used to have a pixel tree that was 1 through 22. And so this is all the pixel nodes that I have. And then I have a single RGB universe, and I keep track of that one universe for all the different things that are in that universe, such as floodlights, different things I have that are RGB eyes. Any questions on this setup? Any questions on the benefit of doing this? And I can't see chats, so recall, I need a verbal if anybody wants to give me one. I'll take
We
silent.
don't have anything in chat at the moment, but if anybody has questions, they can go ahead and chime in and I can relay it.
Excellent. So just wanted to make sure everybody kind of got a glimpse of that. And that's how I keep track of that. So that's one of my tips relevant to that. Jumping ahead. Wait for it. So there's if we're starting from scratch. If you're going year over year, you're going to want to take a copy of your preview that you have, and I assign mine by years, and that way I can go back and look over years. And my sequences, as they change from year to year, I can create new sequences and then still see the old one based upon the preview and the prompts I had at that time. So it kind of helps me keep a history as well as a nice clean environment to work with. If you're unsure about changes as you get into a new year, save it as a different name and copy it to avoid any rework. That way, because if you change something and then you realize, I didn't like that, undoing the change can be somewhat tiresome. So let's go in and look at a layout and preview inside Latorama. And I had this previously loaded up, but when my PC had me reboot it, everything died. And 5.4.2 is, as my understanding, is still the most recent version. So let's open up Okay, so I've created a copy here of my preview. So as you saw on the other side, let's go back in. I've got previews that go pretty while back, and I have some that I do for other things. So, but I have years. So this is 2020 house where I've basically taken last year's preview and I've started playing with it because I'm going to make some changes. So I usually do that around this time. So when you're doing your preview layout, it's really important that you think about how you're going to do your layout. So what I did was I created a background where I took a picture of my house and then I cropped it in a photo editor and then made the size of that document big enough where I could black out a whole section to do my preview. So it allowed me to lay my props down on my house and to also do everything in the yard. So the reason I've created an elevated view of my layout, like as if you were in a stadium seating or in a drone or similar, is so I can create effects across props that go from front to back and left to right and in circles around the display. So that's one thing to consider. So that's the big thing about preview as far as the layout. And I think I've got a couple other things I want to go over real quick. In fact, I'll see if I can just do this without. Having to go through lots of slide hoops. So here's a daytime look at my yard from across the street. And then if you elevate that to some degree, you can create that. And here's what I just explained to you. You can take a picture, crop the yard out and add a blank canvas. And then you want to get a stadium seating view. So here's that. So we just looked at that. So I actually jumped ahead of myself. So let's look at props in the preview because there's a lot of things you can do relevant to custom props that I wanted to get into and wanted to make sure everybody had a good chance for any questions they might have relevant to that. So when you create your props, you want to put them into a fashion where you can use both the RGB facets as well as any non-pixel usage. So create a prop approximate to its size and then shrink it down into your canvas where it goes. And it is very important that it is close to the size that it can be. So if you look here on this, you can see I have these angels up here and I've kind of custom drawn those just so you know. In this older version, this is actually an older version of my layout. And I had these reindeer that were just covered in lights. They're not pixels, they're just regular lights. But I put them in the back and I'll highlight them. And that's what you see here with these little nodes. I know they look like cows when you look at this one, but it doesn't matter if it's a non-RGB item. As long as when it's lit up, you can tell that, yeah, that's where the deer are. And that's what those are in this display. So you'll see those in mine. The biggest thing that I've enjoyed the most with pixels is putting pixels on wireframes. They actually make pixel clips that will clip a pixel on just like regular light clips will do. And by doing that, you can use all your wireframes that you had regular incandescent or LED lights on and convert them into a pixel prop, depending on how intricate they are. But so far, I haven't had any problems with that going into my display. So to show you an example, here's some big candles that I had last year. And this is just running a color effect across it where it's just turned on solid. But you can see these are pixels on that and it looks, the spacing is a little bit less than if you had mini lights on them, but still very good, very readable. So we can go through examples of that. So here are those church windows that you can see. And by the way, these church windows are 4 feet high. These candles are 4 feet high. And these church windows that I had made are 8 feet high. And then I have 4 feet high angels that are above those, and also some that are hanging on the side. So this is kind of at a point where I'm still in the process of getting stuff put out. And this just shows you how you can have wireframes with pixels and you can still see through them to see your house. So next thing we'll talk about when we get into layout is using groups. And it's really important to use groups to organize your props. because when you organize your props into groups, then when you sequence, it really saves time on sequencing, and you can do a lot of effects across a group that will help you. And then you can also create subgroups. So, and then in addition to that, you can import props from Biscorio. You can use delivered props that come with Lightorama, or you can create custom props. And so I'm going to show you all three of those. And I'm also going to show you how to use the submodel. So let's get into that. So here's my preview. So there's two ways you can create some of these custom. Well, first of all, everybody knows you can add a prop. So if you wanted to add a custom prop, you can go in here like the Biscorio that have some already out there. And you can, I think this may take longer and I want to wait. It will, because I'm outputting and inputting here, it will pull in those graphics and those props, and you may want to buy them. So for example, my snowflakes up here on the roof, and I'm not going to wait on it, are those kind of props. And I won this at the Florida Mini this year. This is a poinsettia from Biscorio. And this is not how big it is. To put it in proportion, you can shrink this down. When I said get them close to the size that they truly are, putting this here that's about the size of it. And that's where I plan to put it. So it's actually a little bit bigger than the holly I already have here. And so you can size it to where it needs to be. And there's that prop. Then you can also use this for doing your pixel placement. So when you go to put your pixels in there, this is a really blown up screen that would show you, let me shrink it down. You can kind of see where all the nodes are, but you're going to have to know, because this thing has 500 some odd pixels. And this is the placement. So when you get to do that, but the only way you'd be able to do that is to magnify this up so that you can also see what these numbers are here. You can hover over them, by the way, 489, 514. So that's the kind of end of it. And you can follow those around and draw. You can actually print this out and also copy it into Excel if you like. If you copy it into Excel, then you can draw on it and trace the path so that you can know where you're putting your lights. Those are big helpers with it. It's not as easy to take one of these and put a picture behind it once it's imported, because then you have to get the picture laid out exactly like it. But that's an idea to give you how you can have a custom prop. Then what you can do is come in here and start creating motion effect rows. And this had 32 imported with it. So we'll go into those in just a second, but you can see here, this is a part of that so that you can create effects across these. And they've already created them, and then you can create additional ones. Like there's different petals here that they put in there. So we'll go into that a little bit more here in a minute, but that's an example of an imported prop. These are floodlights here. They're just standard. These, like I said, are the wireframes. All I did to do these wireframes is I said create a custom prop, and I just kind of drew it to where it looks like a deer, in this case a cow. But I know what they are back there. But here's a custom prop that I wanted to show you. So you can see here, this is the dress of the angel. Now you can ask, why isn't it more than that? In my case, I didn't want the entire angel to be RGB'd, because then not only did I have to tell the wings to flat, but also tell the wings what color they are. And I always want the wings to be white. So these are white, and there's 3 of them in here. And so I just created the wings as a standard AC controlled, and that's how they are. And I'll show you how I sequence those when we get to the sequencing portion. But this is just the dress. The head and the wings are a solid color. But I do want RGB color across these. So you can create that prop, and you can see here that there is this angel behind it. And this is how I told it where to put the pixels. So I started down here, and there is pixel 1 right there. And then it goes 2, 3, 4, And I just followed the line. And if you can't see that, well, you can always make it more transparent or less as you start clicking and adding these pixels and identifying the 100 pixels that are, or in this case, the 50 pixels that are on here. So there's 50 pixels on this dress. So I followed them that way by taking a picture of this angel and then fading it down so I could see the numbers as I click them. And then you just turn this on auto increment and then you click. And so you could start a new one like right here, if there was one, and say active, and then it would start a whole new series there. But right now I don't want to do that. So we'll cancel out. But that's how you can create this grid that shapes it. And then I position it here, and I want to make sure it's relative to the size that I want it to be, because you need to think of this entire screen as like a video snapshot. And the things that are further back are going to be smaller in appearance. But when you render your effects on this, or when Lightorama renders the effects, it's going to render them in proportion to how this is laid out. Meaning you want this to be proportionately laid out like what you see when you're on the street. So these arches look wider than these arches over here, but they're not. They're just here up front. They're the closest thing. And so when you look back, that's how the effects are going to render on your display when Lightorama puts the effects you've done. So you want it to kind of get what you see is what you get until we get really good 3D sequencing software, which XLOTS has some of that, but still it's 3D sequencing is way out there in my book anyway. So that's the angel. That's the other thing you can do with these is you can create motion effect rows. So I created 3 motion effect rows to demonstrate for you. So I'm going to create motion effect rows on another angel. So see, it just says motion effect row 1. Motion effect rows, when you're in the sequencer, there is a row for every one of these that you create, and you can put effects on them. So if you want effects to be different on a portion of a prop than another portion, so think of it as like a submodel or a sub prop, you can create those. So we're going to create one by clicking here. And so this is effects 01, and you can just call it that, or I could say all dress. It's the entire dress. And I'm good with that. And then I can add a new one. And let's say the sash, we want it to be the sash of the dress. And so I hit my little enter there. And rather than say none, I'm going to say custom. Notice how these all turned off, but they're still black. Then you can click on here for the color. And this is the sash of the gown of the angel. So I'm not clicking on them individually. I'm just holding down the mouse until I kind of draw my mouse over them and light them up. And if you make a mistake on them, you can go in and click on this eraser right here and erase the ones that you don't want in that motion effect. So if I look at her sash here, and I would make all of this her sash. Kind of like around her waist or his waist, depending on how your angels are. And that would be the upper part of the dress or the gown. So that's that. Now I need to add the remaining dress, whatever you want to call it, and say custom. Now see how these others are not black because they're in another motion effect. So turn on my pencil and draw away. I can just get the tip of my mouse where I want it to be, and you can kind of zigzag if you want to, back and forth. But you kind of get the idea for what I'm doing there. And that's how you create sections of a dress. So we'll cancel out of this because I've already done this here for you. So you can see the motion effect rows. There's the whole dress. There's just the dress, and there's the sash. Any questions on that's basically submodeling or creating sub motion effect rows? And all three of those will appear in there. If you recall the spreadsheet I showed you earlier, I had set this angel to be DMX Universe 170. And so this has, I believe, has 100 pixels. And that's where it has that. And I call it the RGB angel. And the other interesting thing I did last year was I had these trees in my display. And you can see here, they're called RGB tree. There's RGB tree 1. There's 5 here and 5 here. I actually had 15. I reduced them down to 10 because I wanted to open up this section for these church windows, which I'll go over in just a minute. But I wanted more angels in my display, but I didn't have anywhere to put them. And then I realized my trees kind of look like angel gowns. So then I had a wireframe created that looks like just the wings and the head of the angel. So it basically created the, so there's the head of each one of my angels. So there you can see their heads or as in a group. That's what's highlighted in yellow. There's the tree groups, there's the trees. And then there's the stars that are on the RGB. See, and they're not RGB items. That's a group of all the stars, which are just plain LED lights. But their dresses, all these are RGB items, but their wings are just like these wings up here where they can flap up and down. So that's what I created just by using a little ingenuity between. And if I want them to be trees, I just turn the trees on and you don't see the angels. I mean, you might, depending on how bright or dark it is. But in most cases, it just creates the tree effect and I have the star on top. And then other times I have it as being an agent. So it's kind of a dual use. So that's the same thing with these RGB trees. These trees are spiral wrapped, by the way. So when you look at them, you just have to tell it, where's the first pixel at? And I want it to be a spiral wrapped tree up to the top and it's 100 nodes. And then you kind of, this revolutions is how many times around the tree did it go? And you're starting in the bottom right circle. So looking down on the top of my trees, I just wrapped RGB strings at 2-inch intervals on each side, zip tying them to the top of a conical shaped tree. And I've had those for several years now. That's pixels. And that's 100 pixels out there. So that's kind of an ingenuity way, but this is how you can control multiple things with props. The other thing I want to show you is how you can group props. Sometimes you add props and then you can copy them. So you could add a prop and then copy the prop. Before I knew about submodeling, you all remember the candle I created. I didn't think, in order to create sections of it, I just created 3 props. So this is the middle part of that candle. And I knew this was the whatever node it happened to be, the 3rd node or whatever. Let's see, 15th node. And so I created the middle part of my candle and then I created the wax part of my candle that drips off of it. And then I created the flame part of the candle, which is the top part. Now, you could do that, but you don't have to now. You can use motion effect rails or submodeling to create those. Same thing with the leaves. And then you can group them together. So here's a group for that one candle. So the whole candle can be blue, orange, pink, or I can color sections of it and like create a flame effect across the top, make the wax white, make the candle red, make the leaves whatever I want the leaves to be. That's how you can group and create props after you start creating them, but you don't have to do it that way. You can do what I just did on the angel dress up here. The other thing is these church windows, which were massive. So as you can see, there's 100 and well, basically there's 100 pixels right here on this string. And then in other cases, there are more than some of these, but that's just one portion of that church window. So I had to, that was hard drawing it out. Basically, where are the pixels at? And you basically, by doing that, I then copied it to create the others because I made sure all 3 of them were made exactly the same as far as where we placed the pixels. But there's the second middle part of the church window, separate strings, separate DMX universe. And then I created groups for them. So here's the window on the left and the window on the right. If I want each window doing something separate, and I created a group where they're all together, so I can run an effect across all of them. And then I have the windows and all the candles if I want an effect to run across all of these, so I group them together. So by creating groups, you can create effects across those that will really come in advantageous for you. The same thing here. These angels are actually, they have a dress that looks similar to a Christmas tree, but so they're almost a 360 prop. So I kind of laid it out as a matrix and drew the pixels higher up because I knew the effects would wrap around it the way I wanted it to. But this is an angel, and their wings are basically, I have their head and wings are plugged in together, so I didn't draw their wings on here. But this is a suspended angel up in the air in the front, and these are the suspended angels in the back, and these are the ground angels. And then I have Jesus is the reason for the season suspended across the yard. And then these bells were the next cool thing. And actually these bells are the first wireframes I put pixels on. I did that a long time ago. Well, you can create, so I have each bell as its individual prop, but I created a group called a bell group. Now, when you create a group here in the group definition, you can reach over here and say, I want to create motion effect rows for that group. And in so doing, so here's the 5 bells that are in the group. You can create a motion effect row. So here's all the bells. Now, how did I create? I just said none. There's no subsection, so it's the whole area. But then for the ribbons, I actually took the pen and drew that. Now you say, how did you do it when it was that small? Well, you know, you can actually make this larger by dragging your window around. And the larger it gets, so big screens help in this case. And so you can see a little bit better how I was able to do that. And then I did the bell left and the bell right, because when I light up these bells, I like to light the ribbons the same color and then make the bells the golden color that bells are and ring them from left to right so that the bells are ringing. I also decided, well, what if I wanted to do them like this? And really no reason to do that. And see how this says rectangle instead of custom? Rectangle, when you add a rectangle group, it asks you to size it. So you basically say, you can see this is section starting at 223 at the top, and then it goes width and height. So by drawing a rectangle here, you can basically create each one of those. And see how this says 167, and you can move that up and down to encompass, and they would light up as you encompass them. So hope that makes sense. But that's a way that you can create in Lightorama motion effects across a group. So I could do the same thing. I could have just created the church windows as one big prop. I just didn't, because they're multiple universes in a DMX universe. It was easier for me to draw them out by string. So, but you actually could create one prop and have different DMX universes on them. So you could have just continued further across as you create the DMX universe. And then I could have submodeled the church windows into the 3 different parts. The other advantage you also have is, depending on how your groups are laid out, in your motion effects, you can make the motion effect sometimes be over a higher portion or a lower portion of the group, and that way you can do different things for them. So that's something to consider. But this is pretty close to how they're placed as well. I try to make sure how wide is this, and where does this angel fall relevant to this, etc. And where does this angel fall relevant to that bell, etc. Now, this is icicles that I have a custom wireframe that runs up and connects in the middle. And then there's long pieces of wireframe that I hang icicles on that run across. So what I have here and how I do this is, there's a big tree right here in my yard, and there's a big tree right here. This reindeer head that doesn't really look like a reindeer head is here. And I have cables that run from these 2 trees, and there's 2 of them, and the upper bells are on the upper cable, and then Jesus is the reason with the 2 lower bells are running across the bottom. Then from this cables, I hang string that ties onto this wireframe with just string. And I use string so I can cut it without having to climb a ladder to get it down. And And that holds this single piece of wire up there that, and the reason I did this is because number one, I wanted to be able to create kind of a manger scene where I had something over them, but so I liked icicles. Unfortunately, in Lightorama, the icicles don't hang out vertically like this, but the effects run pretty much the way you want them to, even though the icicles are hanging down. So there are icicles up here, for example, on my house, and they do hang straight down like this. And this is where that section is. But I can't make icicles hang at an angle on this. That would be a modification I would ask. But anyway, that's a way you can still get the effects. It creates the shelter view I want to do. And then I can light these up. And it emphasizes that Jesus is the reason for the season. That's what I get. Or you can create them in groups like this or like this. And that's the section that runs. If I want the lights to run that way, I can do that group, and I do that sometimes. Same thing from this way. So by creating a group of that, I can make a chase run across here like that. And groups just save you so much time and allow you to do really cool effects. So that kind of has to do with placement, has to do with how you create props, how you can submodel props. These here are an RGB string that's inside of a Boscoio wrapped around a pole, so it makes looks like a big pole that's got pixels inside of it that light it up. And then I had pixels freestanding at the top, which are just inside a globe, and I put them in as a separate prop, even though their universe starts at 289 DMX value. They're in the same 160 universe on the same string as this universe, and that's how I split it. I could have created those as one thing and then submodeled them. I just didn't do it that way because I drew this as a line and made the nodes look bigger. I made the size bigger here to make them look bigger. So if I shrunk those down, it would just be the single pole that it is. As I said, these are just dumb RGBs. It's a boatload of them. There's about 90. I think there's 90 nodes in each one of these. But it's not nodes, it's strip. It's RGB strip, dumb RGB strip. I could pixelate them, and I probably will in the future. And then these are the globes that are at the top of my candy canes that surround my yard. And that globe has 5 dumb RGB nodes in them. I think that pretty much covers it. These are just some LEDs, lights that I have over on the side. And I just want to be able to see when I have them turned on. It doesn't really matter where they're placed. My main viewing screen, where most people stand, is right here in the front. But I do have a little side yard over here. I just don't have any pixels in there yet on that side of the yard. These are not matrices. These are kind of a bush matrix that just have nodes in them. They're like 3-inch spacing, and I just run them between 2 pieces of pole that allows me to run some color across the house and keep it in a matrix format where I can kind of do some effects with it. Snowflakes across the house. These zigzag lines are these little mini LED lights that strobe, and I put them up there and turn them on with an AC controller if I want to add some sparkle effect. And then, of course, I started with a pixel tree years ago. 2012 was the first year we had a pixel tree, so it's been 8 years now. So I think that covers that. These stars up here are not in my display. They tell me the servo, their DMX values for the snowman that makes the bodies move, the robotic snowman I have that makes their body move and their mouths open and talk and etc. So that's what these are up here for. That's all they just tell me what's going on. But they're not an element in the display. These tubes are snow tubes that are AC controlled, and they're hanging in different trees. And so I put them here so I can at least tell where they are. And Lightorama does a real good job of making them look in the sequencer because they drip in the sequencer. So I'll ask if there's any questions currently on creating props and layout before I go forward with more stuff.
Yes, we have quite a few questions in chat, actually.
This is getting close to our first hour.
Can you hear me, Darren?
No questions. Well, I
Darren?
see Chad. How do you build the Jesus is the reason for the season? Well, as I said, there's a cable that runs from a tree over here to a tree over there. And I have that where I can hang them up from there. So they're just LEDs on wireframes.
Darren, can you hear me? Darren, can you hear me? Okay, I was just going to help read off the questions in chat too, but if you want to go ahead and look at the chat questions, that'll be totally fine.
Hello, hello.
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello, hello.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
No, Aubrey, I can't hear you. Can everybody hear me? Okay, thank you all very much. So asking questions, let's see, I saw a few questions. How do you model your piece lights in LOR? I created, I think that's the only other questions I saw. All I did was they were a piece stake. So I basically just went out and created one prop with 5 pixels straight line because they're basically in a straight line. So all I did was create a straight line with 5 pixels because that's how many pixels I have on the piece stake. And I copied them across, and then it's just making sure you get them about the size they want to be, because technically you can make them as big as you want to. And I just copied them and I laid them out as close to visually what they were. Once I had them in the yard, I actually looked at which angel are they in front of, and they were this one, and pulled them back out here. I had them in here for sequencing, but when I was refining my show right before time to kick off, I tried to look at where are they at, what bell are they under, how far in front of the church window do they come. So I tried to lay them out in the lines that I had them on the ground in. So that's how I did that. So if no other questions on props and layout, because I don't see any currently. Oh, see another chat window. Nope, I don't see anything else. So we're going to go on. I'm not going to save these changes. So let's go back. Okay, we're going to get into sequencing. So I wanted to kind of tell you what I try to do when I sequence. I look for color changes for mood settings. I look for motion to keep attention. So in the motion, you can go side to side, front to back, circular, or within any given prop. So that's what I focus on. 1 second. While I close the door so you don't hear my grandchildren scream. I look for circular motion around the yard. We'll look at some of that. I'll show you that. Motion to accentuate the rhythm of the music. And then I use video and graphics on my tree. I don't have a matrix. I think matrices are very cool, but to me, it's like, why have a TV in your yard? A lot of people like them. I think they look good. I don't mind them. They don't bother me. But to me, it doesn't look like Christmas to me. It looks like a TV in your yard. So I try to see what can I show graphics on, like my tree, that still looks like a tree. So that's just personal preference. So my primary areas that I focus on: the perimeter of the display, the house and the yard, the pixel tree, the angels. I focus on the angels in multiple ways in the church windows because that's what I really want to accentuate. The wireframes behind the angel of the tree line, the wireframes before the tree line, and then the right side of the yard. This is kind of like that secondary. That's something I have to pay attention to because half the time it's dark and I need to make sure at least something is going on over there. Here's a drone view of my yard. So when I said layers, this kind of gives you a feel for that. So kind of here at the bottom, this is where my nativity is. And from looking at the street, you would never realize that that these trees are not square. This tree on this side is further away than this side. But from looking at my display, while this is square with the road and square with the house, up here, this is at an angle. It's not a bad angle, but it is an angle. So here's my nativity lit up. And so this is that archway that's above that nativity that I created that hangs down. And then here's the bells. And then here's Jesus is the reason for the season. There's one of the suspended angels, the angels on the ground with their wings, one set wing. I have some arches behind them and this church windows. And then I have a layer of wireframes right behind here that's kind of like a deer forest. So if I want to create a scene of just deers out in the woods and make the house turn green or something like that, it just can kind of create that kind of feel. So I think wireframes do a good service for that. I think we got some chats here. I get my wireframes from Lori's Lighted Delights, and the reason I use her, other than the fact that she is really good, and they do ship everywhere in the U.S., by the way, she does a lot of custom work. So these giant church windows she and I worked on, and she made those, and they've got a big frame support around them that helps keep them from bending because the wireframe itself is just typical wireframe. But to be 8 feet high, there would be no way to support it without lots of support. So she built a frame around it that I don't put lights on. My mega tree is now let me see mathematically. Where's my calculator? So it's basically 19 feet high up to the base that's right here. And then there's an Icosa star, which is a Boscorio star, and I have dumb RGB nodes in each one of the points. I didn't see any reason to pixelate it when I think there's 20 segments to the star, and there's 7 nodes in each segment. So 7 nodes light up each cone. And to me, why having pixels in there? Because you're going to want the cone to be a solid color to me. So I use dumb RGBs. So that's where that is. So counting the star, which is 4 feet above that, it's 24, 25 feet high. Because it's about 2 feet off of the ground. And then it's about almost 17 feet of lighted length. And it's also open in the back. There's 1/8 opening in the back of it. So from the side, you can see it and I can walk right into it and fix anything I need to fix. Also, it's on a crank up pole. It's on Walter's ASAP pole. There's a plug for Walter Mondale at Magical Christmas. I do not use Madrix anymore. I used to use Madrix. But you can still use Madrix with S5. All my pixels are done in S5. And when I jumped to S5 in 2017, everything went to Lightorama Control. So I quit using my Madrix license. Anybody wants to buy one, I got a deal for you. Anyway, and that's how I had a pixel tree all the way back in 2012. Lightorama didn't even have pixel editor out, but I controlled this pixel tree using Madrix. And then I made the pixels more concentrated, upgraded my license to Madrix, and then I jumped to S5. So I don't need Madrix anymore. So that's how I do that. And I'll type the name of the vendor. It's Lori's Lighted Delights. They're in Stark, Florida. That's 25 miles from me. So it's really convenient for me, but she ships to anywhere. And she made these custom angels for me. She made the wings that go around them. She made these candles and these church windows. I actually had a bell I bought from someone, and then she duplicated it for me years ago. I have a talking reindeer head. I have an Elvis that dances. So different years I have different wireframes I put out. So I get most of my wireframes from Lori's Lighted Delights. I don't think I saw, there's how tall the mega tree is. There, everything I created in S5. Tony Damon asked me to talk about the arrangement feature. I don't know how I arrange things. When I get into sequencer, you'll see how I lay things out in the sequence. And in the preview, when you group things together, like when you create a group for all these angels, you'll see why I group them together. And you can have multiple groups. So I can have a group that's just these top 5 angels. I have a group that's all of these angels. And I have a group that's all of these angels plus the 2 in the front. Sometimes I also have a group that's up here that includes. So you can have groups across groups. Lottorama will render things based upon individual props and based upon groups. It will render the groups first. And then if you have a prop and you've placed an effect on a prop that is different from the effect that's on, well, how do I back up? So here's an example. This tree here is in a group that's called all pixels, which are all the pixels in the yard. So I could put an effect on all the pixels that turns everything that's a pixel red, which is probably what happened here in this picture. All RGB and pixels are set to red, including the floodlights. And that's all one group. So I just say red on one line item in the matrix. If for some reason I wanted this tree to have a swirling red and white on it, I could create an effect and put it on this tree. Now this tree, you would think that's a conflict because the tree is in this group and there's an effect for the group. There's also an effect I put individually on the tree. Lottorama, and I may be wrong, but this is how it renders for my show. So I'm assuming that's how Lottorama is set to render. It may have some other priority in setting, but it appears that if things are in groups, they render largest group to smallest group first, and then individual props after that. So this tree can be a different color from everything else, even though it's in that group, if you put a separate effect on that tree because the props are rendered individually last, and it would override what's on the group for that one item. So I hope that made sense. Let's see, sequencing tips. I think we're ready. Let me just make sure. Oh. Go back to presentation mode. Okay. Move forward. I lay out the music timings first. So when I sequence, I listen to the songs I like and I figure out which songs do I like and what do I want to do and yada, yada, yada. But I create musical timings in my layout. So for every sequence, it's not in the layout, it's in the sequence. I create a beat timing, an accent timing, a melody timing, and or a singer voices timing. And the reason I have a singer voices and or a melody timing is not usually because I sequence lights to those, but I have 3 snowmen that sing and talk. And so I have to tell them what to do. So I have to have a track that tells me when the word, when each syllable of the word happens. So that's something you have to do if you're using servo devices. You have to also consider those in your sequence. And then determine the settings for the song. Do you want to start with dark light, bright light, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I suggest is begin at the start of the sequence and start laying it out within your groups and with your props as you listen to the music and decide what effects you want to do. So again, noting in designing your display, you should always have something for the backdrop of color or something for your beat and something for the accents. So think about, sometimes I used to have stars in my display that were on a pole that had AC lights that went up the pole because they were wrapped around the pole and strings. And I would make the lights run up and they would just run up and flight the stars up just as an effect to music. So sometimes you may want props that are just effects. Now with the way you can submodel props, you can create, like if you have a snowflake, you can submodel the inner portion of the snowflake to be like a circle, and then you can make those circles pop when you want something to pop. So think about those kind of things when you're sequencing in S5 that will help you get the little extra pop, and you don't have to have an additional prop to make that happen. You can use the props and the pixels the way that they're designed to be used. So an example, and we'll go see these in sequencer once I get through talking about them. So in 2019, I had several songs I did. So I wanted something all about Jesus. I always have to have something about Jesus. So we had "Oh Come All You Faithful." And I used pentatonics to try to keep it youthful and to the beat, because we don't want to bore our audiences to death, or at least I don't want to. It depends on how many crowds I have. Sometimes I create a song that's I can throw into sequences on busy nights so that it'll create a boring moment where people will say, okay, we've seen this, let's go, to keep the crowds down. So it just depends on what you're dealing with. I have to have a song for the kids, and I have to grow one, because I am tired of listening to "I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas," although my granddaughters will kill me if I remove it right now. So it'll be in my display for a while until they outgrow it, I'm sure. But their grandmother wants another song that's fun for them. So I've got to do that this year. The other thing, I try to find a song that has color and mood, because to me, a lot of the ladies who come to my display, they want to hear something pretty. So I try to find a song that's pretty. And then I usually want something that's fast. So Christmas times are coming, and Wizards and Winter this past year. I did Wizards and Winter for like the first 3 years of my display, 2007 through 10, and I got tired of it. I reintroduced it last year because I had a nephew who really wanted to see it and hear it. So had that. So, "Oh Come All You Faithful," we'll go into that and I'll show you that. It has an intro that has a pulse to the music, because pentatonics, as a lot of people know, just have voices with very little music. And so I wanted something that kind of had a pulse to it. I wanted to show off my new church windows, because I spent so much time and effort and money on those windows. So I wanted to show those off. So I kind of wanted to make them sparkle and try to look like a church window. I want to change in the angels color washes, and I wanted to figure out how do I add effects around the nativity. And I think I saw, where is it gonna, some chats popping up. So beat, accent, voice, what were the others? I have beat, I have accent, I have voice, and I also have melody, or the vocals themselves, because I may have more than one melody. So if I have a main melody to a song and I have some backup singers singing with it, I have 3 snowmen, or sometimes I have a boy and a girl singing. So I have to have a separate track for what the boy says versus what the girl says. But usually they don't talk over one another. So you can just have one track that has all the melody that's being sung, and that I use that for the voices. Thanks, Aubrey, for doing those. I can actually see when the chat window pops up, so I'll try to keep paying attention to that. So, oh, got a new one. All right, thanks, Aubrey. "Oh Come" example, I think, let's see. Oh, yep. So let's go to "Oh Come." So I think this is Christmas time's coming. Let's open up. And as you can see, I've been sequencing for a long time. "Oh Come All Ye Faithful." So let's get this loaded. For anybody who sees, your sequence won't play until this wheel over here quits spinning. Don't know if you've noticed that yet, but that's what it's loading everything. And until that loads, you won't be able to preview anything. And boy, my computer's just whirring. That processor's humming. So it's still loading for a second. So I'm going to show you my layout over how I get things laid out in the display. So I have so many elements in my display between the groups and the RGB items. As you can see, there's page after page after page after page of individual components in my display, individual props. So every row is a prop. except for the last one. The last one is a sequence within a sequence. You can create what's called, used to in Lottorama S4, you had a sequence within a sequence. Now you have a sub-sequence, which can be an S4 sequence that you can play in S5. So if you have something that you used in S4 across an individual set of props, you can import that, and it's the same song, meaning the same length, same duration, etc. You can import that as a sequence. So let me show you what that looks like. There's a 2019 OCOM LMS file. Now, if you have old S4 versions of different things you want to use on that, that's how you have to do it. The only thing you can subsequence into a sequence is an old LMS file. As everybody knows, or if you don't know, S5, when it creates a file, is called LOR edit. So it would be, in this case, it's OCOM all you faithful .lor edit. You cannot insert an LOR edit file within an LOR edit file, because the problem is it's because it's all rendered graphically for the pixels to display, and it can't render a rendering onto a rendering that's already rendered. So I don't know how they can ever overcome that. The problem with that means is I have to do my snowmen in their own sequence. And the reason I have to do that is because I have so many elements in my display. There's so much traffic running across my network. For those servers to do what they do, they get confused. And so my snowmen start looking like they have Tourette syndrome. And so I basically have to have an S4 and an S5 version on my computer, and you can't have them at the same time. So I have a laptop and a desktop. And so I keep one on my laptop and one on the desktop. And I create the sequence for my snowman in S4, and then I bring it into S5 as an internal sequence. It's a pain. It's the only thing I don't like about Lottorama currently, that other than they need more effects. Sorry, let's see. Got another chat. Each pixel state is a separate prop in your display. Yes, I created a prop for each pixel state. You really don't have to if you want to, but remember, you have to lay them out visually the way you want them to run. So depending on how they are or how you want the effect to happen across them. In my case, I wanted them to look like they look. So I laid them across. Also, you can duplicate props in your display if you want to do effects differently across them. So if you have the real estate on your preview for them, I could have laid the pixel states out even across part of the display, and that way I could run effects up and down them. I just figured I had enough up and down running from front to back across them. So I did it that way. So I hope that answers your question. So having that loaded, these are the master. I always recommend you use groups because groups manage your display. So I created a view called groups, and in there I threw all my groups. And in so doing, then I have just this small little window here to control everything that's a group, because most of my sequencing effect-wise runs across those groups. So we talked about "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," and it has that ripple sound where they go doo doo. And the reason I'm making the stupid sounds is because I can't play it for the sound for you across Zoom. So you have that doo doo, the doo doo, the doo doo, that kind of a sound effect. So this effect here, I'm going to open it up for you, is a ripple. So you can see that I have that running just across the house. So I'm doing a doo doo, and it happens 3 different times, and I'm doing it a red and white ripple. And that's how I know how long I want it to go. By the way, we talked about timings. And so you try to say, so where are your timings? And you can tell I haven't sequenced in 6 months. I don't see timings in my view. There they are. So my timings are here. So right now I have the beat one highlighted. As you can see, I have all voices, and there's no voices at this point yet. And then I have, I always add a fixed timing. So sometimes you just may want to do things in a small microscopic view. And these look like I may have, but you can tell some of them I didn't. So I did them based upon the beat. So those two hit the beat, those two, this one ends beyond the beat. Don't know if everybody knows about drag edges yet, but it's the coolest effect that's in Lightorama. You can drag these effects out beyond the timing marks by using that. And then when you see it go into a V shape, meaning like a fade, you can apply a fade to it. And it's trying to redraw my, okay, see, and so you can fade it out. That's a cool thing you can do. So that's how these effects were timed on here. And they're just those ripple effects. Then the people start singing. And so I'm using my perimeter arch group, which you say, what is that? That is all those perimeter arches. And I had those light up, but then I have the globes, and I want the arches to be red, and I want the globes to be red too here. But I may want, and so I technically could have just picked an entire perimeter group, and I do have one. And then here's the star on top of the tree I mean, and then the star with it. The Moravian star is a dumb, there's 20 pieces to it, or 10, excuse me, there's 10 comb pieces. And so that's each piece to that. So I can make that, I can do effects across them too. See how it says channels, RGB channels, and then motion effects. So you can do a motion effect across an RGB item if there's multiple ones. So up here, I'm doing a color transition effect. That's why I'm making it just all change colors in blue. But this is the pixel tree where it's doing certain things relevant to that. I turned it solid white. That's just solid color effects. And then the church windows, I wanted those puppies that sparkle. So here's where I just created a color and I added sparkle to it because I wanted them to just flash. You can see the little crosses in the top of the windows. They just really came out really well where there are no nodes. And I'll also show you where you can do effects across parts of things. Let me see if I can find that. By the way, this is Jesus is the reason for the season where it fades up, fades down. I have each one of them. This is the nativity. And that's where I have the whole nativity section sparkling. Simple effect, not any motion to it whatsoever. That's where I intensify it. Okay. See, this group says how I have all these different groups around my house and perimeter. So I'm running a single horizontal expansion using red, green, blue, yellow, and white. And it's starting from the center of the screen and going out to the left and to the right in both directions. So that's how you can create a whole effect around the display. What's really cool and standing in the yard and watching that is this, especially from a drone, is you can see how this red that's expanding out expands here at the exact same place it expands back there. But since these are angled inward on the screen and the effects are going out to the horizontal, the effects are angling different. So it just looks different. Otherwise, this would all be, if it was perfectly perpendicular here, like this, that would just be yellow all at one time. So that's why having them a little angled in your view also does that. And I think I had another 2 more chat questions. I have a website that you'll see at the end that's called Christmas on Crystal Springs. And it's all one word on that's the website. Have you been able to create 3D effects with the pixel stakes like waves? You can do that, but you would have to set them up in your preview. Like so. So you see how mine are more front to back, but they do overlap. So this top pixel here is about the same height as that one. It's definitely overlapping that one. So if I applied effect to the pixel stakes, so let's go look at those because I have probably a group for them right here. So the last effect I used has come up. So this is how the effect would render across them. So it wouldn't go up and down like David Peace did in his display where you're trying to get a wave effect. You could, in your preview, you could duplicate these by adding a prop or copying them into a separate section. Like I could lay them across this part of the screen and put an effect on them just up there and create duplicate props for them and do it that way, because that's how David did it in Xlights. It would work the same way here. So don't know if that helped your answer, but that's how you could do it, where you would, yep, okay. So that's another effect I like to use. Let's see. Now you say I have all those church angels and all that. See, here's how their wings are flapping. So you have their wings flapping up and down and up and down. I'm going to try this and we'll see if you guys can actually see it. Oh, let's see. Window. See if it resets my window layout. Okay, up here at the top. It may not let me do it. No, it's not gonna let me do it. And it's probably because we're showing video, but I do have some clips I can show you where they would do certain things. In fact, so here's where there's a sparkle effect. So what you're going to see, I'll back this up and let you see it. So this is the arch. These are the icicles that run across my nativity. And then here's the angels. Now, the cool thing about this, I think this effect is across the entire angels, meaning these two angels that are suspended and these angels that are on the ground, and as they go up over. And what you can do is you can have a color effect run. And so see how this angel here is one color, and you can see the teal shading to green, shading to yellow and to orange. This angel here from the camera view is actually further out to the right than this angel is. This angel is more aligned with this one from the street. The other thing is you can do a color wash across a group, which is what I did on these bells. So there's a color wash that shows, so the bottom of this bell is white and that ribbon starts turning to yellow, and these are yellow and then turns to orange. And this is a Garland preview type thing. I'll show it to you in the display, but you can see that. So I'm going to try to run that and see if you guys can see the motion. So you can see the color, and then you see how that just flashed up, and I'm running. And here's the color wash across the whole house. Color wash across those. This is a ripple from the center of this out, but you could do a ripple from the bottom up and it would run the other way. See how the lines are perfectly lined up front to back? The color is washing universally across the display. Front to back, front to back. So that's kind of a sample of how you could do certain things. Let's see if I can find some of these here. So here's the color wash across the angel dresses. So it's just a horizontal expand that's doing the color wash. Then I could get this solid here is just turning the nativity on. I think this is. So what this is doing, I have two effects, right and left. So this fits to the duration. So what happens is this effect over here is a curtain close effect that closes from the bottom to the top, and it does it semi-fast, but it's fit to the duration, one fit to the duration, which means however long this is how long that effect is going to run. And then this is the colors I want to see in that. So when you're mixing an effect from the left and the right, you have to tell it here how you want to mix the effect. And the mix is where the one that's on the right, the curtain effect, reveals what's on the left. So you get this color wash as this curtain motion happens, and then it looks like in the center picture like this. So that's how you get that color effect. So you're using effect across an effect. Now, not to plug X-Lights, but X-Lights can do this across an infinite number of layers. So you could have 2 effects layered on top of one another. You could have 15 effects layered on top of one another, and it would render them from the bottom one to the top. I will never use that many effects. 2 is plenty. I just want more effects from Lightorama, but I'm very happy with what I have. Let's see if I can find a couple other. So here's all those angels we talked about, and that's just doing a single color. Here I have them doing a color wash. So that color wash you saw in that other video is happening right here. And it's just a simple color wash. And you just have to pick how wide, how slow you want it to go. If you want it to go faster, you say, I want it to happen faster, how slow. And then you could, right now it's dead middle, but if you wanted it to be offset, you could offset it. And then once you've created these effects over and over again, you can, by the way, save them right here and say save it and then name them and then just reuse them. And that's a time saver. Let's try and see, do we have anything that has all pixels? So here's the bells. Oh, this is a cool effect. Unfortunately, the size of my screen is not letting it really show to its. So it's across the whole group, but see how the bottom of the bells are white and the middle are yellow and the top are red? That is a garland fill that's happening once for the speed. So the speed is only as long as I have the effect running. And I'm trying to remember where we are in this effect. So bells, bells, bells. So it's this whole thing here. So it happened pretty slowly. And then once it happens, it's done. But it shows you, see how it kind of sparkled and filled? So I could have slowed it down. And it would have filled much slower to get to the whole top. And that's, so I just did it. And that's how I got a cool looking effect across the bells without having to do them individually. Nativity all. Here's a, without adding a second effect. Sometimes you can get an effect without using a second one. This is a circle. And it's where you place the circle. And since it's in the middle going out, it does that ripple effect from the middle out. And it does that for the duration of the effect, which isn't that far. It's just some fast color that I want to do. And there's probably something here in the song that I wanted to emphasize just at that beat. And again, here's the angels flapping their wings from lower to middle to high, lower, middle, high. So that's up and down wing movement. I think I saw another question. If you stop, share, and reshare, but check the buttons on sharing video and audio, it should work. Well, I'm assuming you're talking about so I can show you that. I'm going to show you some video clips, and I think that'll get where, so you don't have to see this. Because I don't think, let me try from the beginning. No, it just won't play. I don't know if it's because this window is not broken out. It worked yesterday when I tried it. So anyway, that's why. No, it just frees, it hangs up. So that's why we're dealing with that. Let's see if I can get to some of the stuff at the end, and then we'll jump to another sequence and show you some of those things. So here, obviously, I'm getting close to the end. And you always have to end with your grand finale. But see how this is all pixels? So this is everything that's a pixel. Or an RGB is just twinkling, and it's twinkling with multicolors. And I probably had it initially all white. Then here, this is a twinkle effect that's on an AC. These gray item areas are AC devices, so you can't RGB them. And so there's nothing I have that's separated from that. This is solid. This is just my nativity is lit white. It looks like stained glass, and that's why I have it. It's really pretty stained glass items that I think you can get from Action Lighting. And so that's what creates that nativity set the way I want them. So I don't have anything more here. Let me get out of "Oh Come All Ye Faithful." No, don't save it. So this is Christmas Time's a Coming, which, by the way, both of these sequences are on my website. So "Oh Come All Ye Faithful" and "Christmas Time's Coming," you'll be able to watch the whole thing. So this is one of those songs that I really didn't want to do a lot of fancy effects. I just wanted it to be fun. Plus, I'm showing off the girl snowman who is doing a boatload of singing, because the lady who sings this song is Dolly Parton, and my snowman is a blonde snowwoman. So it seemed to me to fit. And this is just a fun song. That's the country song. So you'll see I have different groups here. I have red and white. Red and white is always the grand Christmas color to me. So I have the icicles running across. I had the ridge lines doing a blended red and white. And I had the verticals that are on the front part of the house doing the same as what the roof is doing, but I had them going vertical. And I use those because there's no one effect that does all three of those things at the same time. So I have three separate groups for that. But I do have a whole house with floods, house with snow upper. So I have other groups where I can do whole house effects. And then here's the holly bushes that are on the front of the house, holly leaves. And since I didn't want to subgroup it to identify the berries in them, so I just put red dots in them, and that creates it by using a twinkle that has multiple colors of green. Because the more of these you create, the more of it is green. If I just had one green and one red, it'd be half red and half green. Whereas you make more of it and you get it more green. That's just a way you can do things with colors. And it's just a random twinkle, and you fill in how dense you want it to be, etc. Nice, pretty little effect. And the bushes, same peppermint, red and white, moving around through the bushes. And then the floods are just red. Then you can get over here, and I'm getting to, oh, you got arches that are clapping. So you can create a curtain effect that has going to the center, and it's an open then close effect. And then you just figure out how you have to play with this based on the timing of it. And these go pretty much to the beat of the music. So they're doing a clap in blue and white. And this is an arch, and there's the arches group. And so I have it running across the 4 arches that I have out there. So I just copied the effect across. This is the yard perimeter, which was doing the same blue and white, dancing around. So we kind of went back and forth in colors. The pixel tree was just kind of red and sparkly, or it was blue and sparkly. Oh, there's a blue swirl going across the tree. Trying to think what else. That was just white. You can actually do effects on, I just tried to say solid, I think here. Yeah. Let's see. I popped the angels in at one point in time. Oh, so here's how you can do some video, and it's 2 effects blended. So I have a video clip of Santa Claus flying. This is a very cool looking effect. I've used it for 3 years now because everybody loves it. Because people sit in your display and go, look, Santa Claus is on the tree. And so I create that, and I say to repeat itself because it's not that long of a clip. So it just keeps repeating over and over as it goes. And then you control, you can say if you only want it to match how long the sequence is. Well, I just want it to keep going until the sequence is over. And to me, Santa Claus needs to be flying through the snow. So I created a snowflake pattern over here and merged the 2, where it's just a mixed overlay. So that's a way you can use graphics with some other effects that do some pretty cool things. And that's at the song where it's probably talking about Santa Claus. Now, this is they actually have a prop for this now, but at the time they didn't. This is the Icosa star, which has 10 points. on those 10 points, I just created 10 points on strings that formed in a star pattern. Even though they're not laid out in this pattern, you can, you can get the cones changing color in a cylindrical circle pattern by using this. So I created a blended bar movement across each of those RGB items. So that's how you get kind of effects in RGB. So I have my star. It looks like the star is kind of rolling. But that's a motion effect across an RGB non-pixel item. And that's same thing around the yard perimeter, gets the same thing. Had the church windows doing some pretty cool things. I think I had, oh, and I probably have to go back to O Come All Ye Faithful. I actually created an effect on the windows. Let's see if I can just create it. So I did a small, I think I did a pinwheel. And I increased the number of arms where it's pretty big. And then I shrunk it down where it wasn't very big. And made the arms as many as I could make. And then I took it and offset it like this at the top of the church window. And it created just, I don't know if you can tell it, and I didn't use these colors. So if I just stuck to 2 colors, maybe it would. You can see how the crosses are sticking out on the window. And then you can make the arm length wider and just figure out how do you want them. And that's how you can create an effect on part of a prop. So it's sometimes good to just play with that. And I did that across the top of the church windows in part of O Come All Ye Faithful. And I think I did it in gold and white. Very cool looking effect. But you can do it. That's how you can play with your effects. And then if you want to really make them look great, you can wow them and spin it and all that. So I don't want my show to be like a laser light dance show. So I just try to keep it where it's colorful, cool, and then still has some traditional look and feel to it. I think these are, again, just the clapping windows. Jesus, the reason. That's just the wings of the angel. Then we got to the end. And I did this. A lot of people like to use these kind of effects, and I really like to use them, but they get old quick. So I do them intermittently. Because if you just do whole house effects, so this is every pixel that's in the yard, and there's nothing that conflicts with that. Let me see if I can test our little tree rendering scenario. So if in this same, I made the tree, let's just make the tree a color wash of red. And we do that. Copy. That far. It's not going to let me preview. I can't show you this effect because I can't render it. I mean, I can render it, but it's rendering right now. That's why that wheel's spinning. It's not going to let me do it on the playback, which I can try. See, there's another chat out there. How do you get that? You send me on Messenger a nice, can you send me that file and I'll send it to you, Joe? Because I believe in sharing. There's where I do a fade on the RGB group for the last 2 bangs. I think we ended with this color going the other way. So I went one direction, then I went the other. And depending on how you angle those, the other thing is if you're front to back and you're flat in your yard, it really sometimes can, now that's spirals, but you can create vertical things front to back. Yard perimeter. So I ended with those two things, and then you can fade effects too after you've created them. And this song, timing wise, had a beat, a fixed, and voices. And so on the two voices, I had those two voice beats predominantly lead those. So that's how I did that one. We'll open one more. I've actually already kind of cut ahead of myself. Boom, boom, boom. I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. I'll get into that in just a second for the kids. Hippopotamus, the only light color you can really get for those is purple. I have a little snow boy, so we had him start singing. There is a video of that hippo from the movie that's name is eluding me at the top of the moment. Gloria is the name of the hippo, and she does the dancing and starts with an M. Anyway, there's video of her, and I pulled it off the internet, and I used that to create a hippo dancing on the tree, which people could recognize depending on how you set it up. And then I used a lot of ripples on that because it's just something I need to entertain the kids. Christmas time's to come. We talked about the Snow family is singing with Dolly as the lead. I used a lot of red and white and blues and whites, and I had the Santa, the videos. Oh, there's a video of the dancing reindeer on the tree. I need to go back and show you that. And then I could try this. We'll see if it'll work. This is I want a hippopotamus. Let's see if it'll work. You won't be able to hear it, but it's going blum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum, and then it's drawing the purple arches, da, da, da. And the little boy singing, I want a hippopotamus for Christmas in that irritating high-pitched voice. And so you get the snowman doing the thing. And then I have the purple and white, and here's you a drone shot to give you the ripple effects from the back to the front. So you can see the ripple effects. There's the dancing hippo, and it looks somewhat distorted, but that's because there's wireframes between you and it. That you're seeing through. Here's another air effect where you're seeing a swirl from that was a back to front move effect. This will give you a Christmas song glimpse. This actually was done 2 years ago. This will give you, other than the flashing icicles on the right-hand side, which drove me crazy. Here's fire effect on the icicles in the tree and the bushes, fire. So, and this year I didn't have the church windows, I don't believe. So you have, that's just snowfall across all the pixels. So you have color washes going out. I have 5 arches instead of the 3 big church windows in the front. And this is the Christmas song sung by Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole, so the girl is Natalie Cole and the boy is Nat King Cole singing. It was real pretty. And here you got mistletoe. That's a graphic of mistletoe running across the tree. And you're going to get to see here and this is where everything's all aglow and something like that. Now there's a dancing Santa graphic on the tree where it's a cartoon character of Santa dancing to the music. And then they know that Santa's on his way. And here's the video of the Santa Claus across the Christmas tree with the snow falling. And so you can kind of see that effect. And the other things are just icicle effects running across the snowflakes. You turn the color. There's the bell groups where you have the bells ringing left to right. And the ribbons are all, and that's ringing to the music. And you just have blue icicles falling through your props. And this is an effect I can show you later where it's doing the stream. Now here's this 2018 Yabba Dabba Doo, which is the Fred Flintstone song, but it has Christmas lyrics, and he's going Yabba Dabba Doo like Fred Flintstone right here. And it's Christmas, Merry Christmas, and a happy holiday to you. So the lyrics are all Christmas based, but it's to the melody of the Fred Flintstone song. The candy canes the snowflakes were swirling. This is a very fast-paced song. It was a show opener. So I had a lot of motion running, a lot of flashing, strobing to the music. And then went to colors and went to other parts. It's just try to make movement and get them, let the snowmen introduce. This is the first year. We had all 3 snowmen. We'll have a gay old time. Happy la la la, the end of the song. And I can't think of what's going on there. And then you can see the stuff on the right side of the driveway. Get a little finale of the snowman and add a color and a pop and you're done. So that kind of gave you a glimpse of all 3. Oh, here's "Oh Come All You Faithful." Let me go back into show mode. So remember, this has the doo-doo, which makes the ripples. So there's lots of ripples, and then they start singing "Oh Come All You Faithful." See how the candle flames at the top are flickering? Can't see it well in the video, but you can see it in person. And then here's the church window sparkling. You can see the crosses in the middle of them. I'm just changing colors for them through the lyrics, starting some effects through those, and just trying to show those windows off. And then I had an arch that wasn't doing what I wanted to do on the right. So it's like all of us, we see what's not working in our displays. And then color washes across the angels, build the windows up from the ground. So that's those motion effects. One reveals the other. And just doing it across different colors as the text and the voices, then throw in my bells to have the effect run across them too. Go into whole house washes. You can see the pixel stakes in the front, adding to that color to help fill in some more ripple effects. And that's a ripple effect that I did on the arches around the yard and on the nativity in the middle at the same tempo. Show the angels off, make them all work together. And the nativity, although it looks white, it's so bright, it's color washed. It's actually kind of blues and pinks and whites and looks like stained glass. So, and as you can imagine, there are places in here where they're like going, here's that garland effect on the bells again we talked about. And then this is a kind of a growing effect inside the church windows. And I just copied it on the piece stakes because I wanted some color and I thought I'd just match the color. Sometimes you can use effect there just to give you a color mix and it's using the same colors you use somewhere else. And it won't make sense on the prop you did it, but it'll keep the color. Here's again those. If you were hearing this, this would all make perfect sense. So go back and watch it on my website. Now here you see the color. And I think I go to a drone shot on one of these where you can see this color move all the way across it. So we'll see. Maybe it'll do it, and maybe it won't. I can't remember what I droned and what I didn't. I think we're getting close to the end. Yeah, we're not far. So no drone shots on this one. So after I show this, and I don't know how well that came across on the video, if someone could chat me and tell me how that went so I can say if I'm wasting your time because it doesn't come across well, we'll know. Can someone chat me and say, yep, I could see it. It was jumpy, but it made enough sense. Okay, great. Thanks. All right, we will move on to Christmas Time's a Coming. These are the ones you'll see on the website, but you'll at least hear the music to it. And that's probably Audrey saying, oh, Merlin Potter's also in Jacksonville. An eye testimony. Now this is fun where I'm just trying to have fun with it and trying to do Christmas colors. But I do think I have a drone shot in here. So now I go to the blue and whites we talked about. And here's where you can see the holly was doing the greens and the blues. I mean, the greens and the reds. And I had the reindeer going, here's just a different color set. And I'm ringing the bells because she's saying something about ringing the bells. And then we're going to get Santa Claus flying across the tree momentarily. Because I think that's why I went to this view shot. By the way, this is all filmed with the drone, every shot in that year. These trees are wrapped, so I'm just running a chase up the tree. Oh, here's the dancing reindeer. And unfortunately, it doesn't video well, but the reindeer are dancing. And it's a very country beat. And so they're dancing to that beat. So I just thought it was priceless. Because she's saying something about dancing. And here's that same garland effect. Again, back to core Christmas colors, turn my reindeer on, get the candles going. Not showing the angels, not showing the church windows. So you saw these trees are trees and they're not angels. And then there's the clapping arches and get a little smiley face on your tree because everybody's happy and the world's a better place. And then there's your drone shot. Look how clean your lines are if you lay it out well. See how that effect just runs perfectly front to back. I couldn't be happier with the ability to do that. And it's all in how you set your preview up. So your preview is key to being able to make that everything just pop and hum. And then your placement in the yard has to match your preview. Just because you get the preview right doesn't mean it'll all be roses. So I got time for questions. I think I'm through in 6 minutes. I think we're supposed to be. So I wanted to leave a little time for questions. Can we open up the microphones if people want to ask questions verbally? Audra, can you give me an open?
Can you hear
Can
me?
anybody unmute yet? If they open up the mics, you'll be able to hover over your mute button and unmute.
Oh, let's find out if we can do that. There we go.
I need to fix my speaker.
They should be able to unmute now. I'm still not sure that you can hear me, but if you can't hear me,
I don't
you're
think
not-
my speaker is going to change any of the settings. Oh, it sure will if I do that. One moment. Let's back up. The host said it isn't allowing the unmuting. Let me see if I can do anything.
Try now.
Aha, I can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me, and people should be able to unmute themselves if they want to ask questions.
Great.
Darren, Greg Young just wanted to say hi. No questions, buddy.
Hey, Greg, good to hear from you. Anybody else have a question on anything I can go into Light of Ramen, show you real quick, show you how I did the effects. Like I said, you're setting up your preview and then making your yard match that preview is key. I'll show you all a few pictures real quick. So here's like all blues, and here you can see the nativity. So see that stained glass look? I just love that. So that's what I wanted in the display. Here's an all blue. Here's that effect I told you about across the top of the church windows. It was just really cool looking. Kind of looked like a radiating sun. Here's the daytime. You already kind of saw that. I can make these bigger too. Where's my move? Here's a good look at my yard from the corner. So you can kind of get a good look at where everything is. And here's the hippopotamus up front that my granddaughter, every time it comes on, she goes, there he is, there he is. Here's the hippopotamus on the tree. You can kind of see. And this is kind of up close when you're back on the sidewalk. And here's, you can kind of see the pixel stakes, how they're laid out. Gives you a good feel for that. That doesn't pertain to that. That's a secret for next year. I don't want anybody to see. So here's an effect where you can see how you get the red going, get your color, and here's kind of an angled shot. This is an ice effect. Go ahead.
Your shed looks pretty cool on the left. Do you ever use that in lighting your show at special places?
My shed, you mean the snowman shed right here?
Way at the back. It almost looked like a gingerbread house.
Oh, there's a gingerbread house I use periodically. Let's see if
Do you ever do anything with it?
No, I don't.
Preview.
You're talking about this one right here? Actually, that is I'm on a well and septic
That's
system.
it.
I'm on the edge of town, and in front of that, I put this big gingerbread thing. And I have gingerbread here. See this wireframe on the house? I light that up. There's another one there. There's two more over here. And I have gingerbread on the side. So sometimes I just light up the gingerbread men and nothing else but, so I can create a gingerbread effect. Now, technically, if I was crazy, I could put pixels all over this house and make it change colors, flash, and do all kinds of things. But that would be a boatload of pixels. But it wouldn't be more than what you have on this window here. I mean, that church window is 8 feet high. It doesn't look it because these arches are almost 6 feet high. They're about, well, they're not as high as, they're a little over 5 feet high. So these arches are, these church windows are like mega high. But that's almost 4 feet there, maybe 5. So color, color, color. This is when I'm doing one of my, so the bells up here in the front, you see parts of those lit up. If you just do an icicle effect and you don't have it super thick, it just looks like sparkle, like strobes would look all over your yard. And the pea stakes are also doing it. And this is at a part where you kind of want just some added pop without drawing attention away from the angels, and you want that in the background. So there's another shot of it. So I had a lot of shots, and this is to give you a feeling for density. So when you have a lot of pixels to look through, that's when everything is on. I had these little trees at the front. Here it kind of gives you a good feel for my RGB tube arches at the front and the RGB globes. And I have a pretty high ceiling house, and you can see the tree that's about 24 feet to the top of the star. There's about 2 feet above the ground of it here where there's nothing underneath it. I think that's about it. Yep. No more, no more, no more. Yep. Any more questions? Here are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
I'm new to all this. I want to build an RGB arch, and I went to Lowe's and bought this this landscaping edging, but it wasn't from like a couple of years ago. That was easier. Is there any suggestion that you can give me that I could use pixel nodes to build?
I have 3/4 inch RGB. I have 3/4 inch EMT poles, 2 of them, and they're cut back a little bit, so they're not quite 10 feet long on each side. I think I cut them back a foot. Maybe they're 9 feet on each side or 8 feet. They're probably, no, they're 8 feet because they're 16 feet long. And I drive a piece of rebar into the ground at an angle, and then I put one end of the tube on one end and one end on the other. And then I just zip tie my pixel strip across the arch, and it stays up perfectly fine.
Do I need pixel strip, or can I just use the bullet nodes or the square nodes to make the arch?
You could use either. You just have to figure out how you're going to zip time. It'd be much more trouble to zip time. Mine are actually Lightorama Cosmic Color Ribbon, which has been one of their most troublesome products. They have a little bitty controller that controls 2 of them. So I just set one of them down between 2 arches, and one goes one direction and one goes the other. And it basically counts for 50 nodes across the arch, although it lights it all the way across. You get more fuller color with ribbon than you do with nodes. That's why when I did the arches around the yard, I did that hyperdense polyethylene tubing that was a little 2 1/4 inch thick. I mean, in circumference, or I mean thickness, and put the RGB strip in it, and that made it glow, made a big thick light. You could put nodes in that, but it looks better with strip too. So I've just used RGB strip where I can. Now the strip all the way around the yard is just dumb RGB strip. I've bought it from Reiwu in China. I've bought it from Holiday Coro. I've bought it from different groups. It's just I have to make it a specific length because I think my arches are almost 9 feet long, bent over. So when you look at the arches in my yard, you They're about 9 feet in length, and after you bend them up, and they basically have, I mean, there's tons of videos online for how you make those tubed arches. I'll eventually pixelate them, most likely, but I basically do them for twofold: to keep people out of my yard. That's why I originally did it. I used to have rope light that went between all the things. So here's our sponsors. Buy stuff from them. They all. Here's my website, Christmas on Crystal Springs. No spaces between it. You can www.com. And it'll take you to this website. And I have all my videos for many, many years back. And I also have a Facebook page by the same name. So you can go look there. The Facebook page usually has more stuff on it, more current. So when I get busy at Christmas time, I can post videos there first before I get them out on the website. We're going to do I thought we were supposed to do a raffle at little.
We are. I'm ready when you are.
So if you want to take charge, we can do the raffle unless somebody else has a question. Wait, there's 7 questions on here. Let me see. Thank you. You can buy the tube from McMaster. Yep. I really like to buy things from Ken. Ken's a good guy. So you can get them there. You can get them from Laudorama, wherever you want to get them. I haven't had any trouble with hardly any of it. I just zip tie it on the connection points on the arches, and I find it works best that way. It's a lot faster than trying to zip tie 50 nodes, because I only had to put about, probably 15 to 20 zip ties to hold the string up there. And I put it towards the front. I zip tie it on it, and then I tilt it towards the front so you can see it from the street.
All right, you ready for me to grab the screen?
Yep. So grab away. Thank you all.
All right, can everybody see my raffle screen?
I can.
Perfect. All right, here we go. We're gonna see who is the winner of a voiceover from Jingle Bumpers and from Wally's Lights, a $25 gift certificate and pixels. Hold on, I realized I need to stop the live stream.